They say life has a cruel way of testing people, breaking them down to their knees before showing them the light. But what would you do if, while standing with a shovel in your hand, about to bury a young woman you were told was dead, she suddenly opened her eyes? Stay with me until the end, because this isn't just a story about survival, it's about fate, forgiveness, and the power of kindness that can change lives forever. In a forgotten village on the edge of the countryside, lived a farmer named Javed. His life was nothing but hardship. Seasons passed with either floods drowning his fields or droughts cracking the earth, and debts followed him like a shadow he couldn't shake off. His wife had passed away years earlier, leaving him to raise a daughter, Amina, who was still too young to understand why her father often sat outside at night staring at the empty sky. Poverty had taken almost everything from Javed, but not his honesty. He was known as the man who would rather starve than steal, the man who still worked from dawn until his hands bled, even when the harvest gave him nothing in return. One evening, as Javed returned from the barren land with nothing but mud on his feet and pain in his back, he was stopped by two wealthy men from the nearby town. Their clothes spoke of power, their tone of arrogance. They offered him money for a simple job, to bury a young woman who, according to them, had disgraced their family. She had been declared dead. They needed it done quietly, before the night ended. Javed was torn. His stomach had been empty for 2 days, his daughter was crying for food at home, and the money they offered was more than he had ever seen at once. Desperation silenced his doubts, and he agreed. When he reached the edge of the field with the body wrapped in white cloth, the moonlight fell on the girl's pale face. She couldn't have been older than his own daughter would be in a few years. Something inside Javed trembled, but he shook it off. He dug the earth, sweat rolling down his neck, his breath heavy as guilt pressed on his chest. And then, just as he lifted the first shovelful of soil, he heard a sound. A gasp. A fragile cough. He froze. His hands shook as the girl's eyes fluttered open. She wasn't dead. She was alive. Panic surged through him. His heart raced like a drum, his mind screamed with questions. Who was she? Why had they wanted her buried alive? And what would happen to him if those men discovered the truth? The girl's lips trembled as she whispered, "Please, help me." Those 3 words shattered every wall Javed had built around his weary heart. He couldn't turn away. He couldn't be the man who buried an innocent soul alive just to fill his stomach. So he made a choice, a dangerous choice, that night. He carried the girl to his small hut, hiding her under the broken roof where Amina slept on a straw mat. His daughter woke and blinked at the stranger beside her. Instead of fear, Amina offered the girl a sip of water and whispered, "Don't worry. My Baba will protect you." That simple gesture of kindness brought tears to the girl's eyes. She revealed her name was Zoya. She belonged to the same wealthy family that had paid Javed. They had planned to get rid of her because she refused a forced marriage that would have secured their power. To them, her life was worth less than their honor. Days turned into nights as Javed cared for Zoya in secret. He gave her the little food he had, even when it meant going hungry himself. Amina shared her blanket. Slowly, Zoya regained strength, and with it, hope. But danger was never far. The men who had sent Javed were searching for her, spreading fear in the village, threatening anyone who dared to hide her. Javed's heart pounded every time a knock came at his door, but he stood firm. For the first time in years, he had found a purpose greater than survival, protecting this girl who had been thrown away like she was nothing. But fate tested him again. The men discovered that Javed had not completed the job. They stormed his hut one night, demanding answers, waving weapons in their hands. Javed stood tall, his frail body trembling but his spirit unbroken. "You will not harm her," he said, shielding Zoya and Amina with his arms. They beat him, leaving him bloody on the ground. But when they turned to take Zoya, something unexpected happened. The villagers, who had watched Javed suffer silently for years, finally rose. They gathered with sticks, stones, and fire in their hands, surrounding the men. For once, the poor stood together against the powerful. The men fled into the darkness, humiliated. Zoya, deeply moved by Javed's sacrifice, vowed she would never forget him. When she finally reached safety with the help of people who believed in her, she made sure Javed's suffering would not continue. Months later, she returned, not as a helpless girl, but as a woman with influence, bringing opportunities and aid to the village. She helped Javed pay off his debts, ensured Amina had an education, and gave the villagers seeds, tools, and water systems so no child would ever go to bed hungry again. But perhaps the most powerful change was not material, it was in the hearts of the people. Javed, once a broken man, was now respected as a hero who had chosen compassion over fear, who had risked his life to save another. And Zoya, once a girl silenced by her own family, became a symbol of resilience and courage. Together, their lives reminded everyone of a truth often forgotten: sometimes, the poorest hands hold the richest hearts, and one act of kindness can grow into a revolution of hope. So, when you hear this story, ask yourself, what would you have done with that shovel in your hand? Would you have walked away, or would you have listened to the faint whisper of life begging for help? Because sometimes, the difference between burying someone and saving them is just a single choice, and that choice can change the world.